Hello and welcome to Sign Language Studies in Paris. This is Global Seminar Information Session. Happy to have you here. I am joined by Professor Peggy Lott, and I will turn things over to her just as soon as I go over some logistics and reminders, and she'll tell you all about the actual program. First off, we are recording. This is designed to only be shared with students who registered for the session rather than being publicly searchable. But it's also just a caveat that if you decide to come off of mute to ask your question live, that will then be included. All right, so hopefully all of you saw the link to the general information session. Our office hosted that a couple of weeks ago. It includes the overall timeline for global seminars, the application process, what the budgeting looks like, as well as the financial aid that can go towards that budget, and other resources. So I'm not going to delve into too much detail about that. Please watch that session in depth, but I do have a couple of reminders that were all to overlap with that session. And then if you want to join us for an in-person general session, we'll be having one in the dance hall at the end of the month. It's going to be the same information as the recorded version. It's just another opportunity for students to ask us questions, and we figured why not do it in person? One of the most important policies that we did go over in more detail in the general info session, I want to emphasize again, is the cancellation policy and withdrawal deadlines. So I put up a little chart straight from our website, so you can go there to see a much bigger version of it, about when refunds are available for certain types of program costs and various fees. We just want to make sure that students are aware of this. It does impact only really a handful of students each year, but it hits them hard. So we really want to make sure that everyone is aware of it. And then the one caveat that's not included in this chart is that if your program is canceled, you won't be charged anything, and that $250 deposit will be refunded. But otherwise, that is a non-refundable deposit. Hopefully, most of you are familiar with this graphic from the general session. But this time, the purple bucket of the program fee has a more narrow range. So we're expecting that this program will range from about $6,600 to $7,000 at the most. So you can factor that in more specifically to your budget. Now, that does include housing and that will have a kitchen in it, so you can eat most of your meals there. It has on-site support, excursions, all of the entry to any museums, as well as any non-metro transportation to get there. It also includes the classroom space and insurance. So it does really factor in a lot of things into that. And then I won't go into too much detail about the summer session tuition and fees or the personal expenses buckets, as that's elaborated more on the general one. But I will emphasize that for this program, unfortunately, a transit card is not included in the program fee. It's about $150 to $175 US, and it's just too complicated to get for a group in Paris. So they do ask that our partners on site do ask that you do get that yourself, but it's very straightforward to do. Just you budget that in or factor that into the personal expenses instead. Oh, and I will definitely be once we do confirm the program cost, once we get that contract signed, I will be announcing it to everybody who registered for this info session. Now on to some other program specifics. Just a reminder, the applications open November 1st. We do accept placeholders for the following documents if you don't have them yet. A transcript, only if you're in your first term here at UCSD. if you don't have your passport yet, or you can't get a health appointment yet, which is going to be true for most. Keep in mind that, again, the health clearance is not meant to be a barrier. It's just meant to ensure that you're having the conversations with the medical experts, which we are not, and that you ultimately have the support you need when you go abroad, whether that's based on your physical health or mental health. Just confirming that no travel clinic is needed for this program, as it is for a few others. In addition, no prerequisites are needed for this program. So really, you just need a true interest in sign language. For the visa for France, I'm happy to confirm that U.S. passport holders don't need a visa, but you do need to register. So it's called a travel registry. It's the ETIAS. I've been just calling it ETIAS, but I'm not sure what the actual pronunciation or phrasing is. It's just a registry. It should only take a few minutes to do, a few days to get the response back, and cost less than $15. I've factored it into the personal expenses budget estimates. If you do not have a U.S. passport, I don't know what you need. It really depends on what passport you do hold. Some might just need to do the ETS like the U.S. passport holders. Others may need a full visa. Keep in mind that either a visa or the registry are the responsibility of the student. It is not up to us to make sure that you can gain entry into that country. If you do need a visa, we will provide support documentation for that in March. But it's still up to you to apply. When it comes to returning to the U.S., international students should just check with ISEO to make sure your DS 2019 or I can't remember what it is signed. It's been a while since I was an international student advisor. So just check with them to make sure everything's cleared for you to get back into the country. Same for, or similarly for other visas or green card holders, make sure to check with whoever you need to check with to make sure that you can return without any complications. I also have just a couple of fall events and let you know how to contact us before I turn it over. First off, we are very excited to be hosting the Study Abroad Expo this Thursday, October 23rd in Town Square. So we'll have a lot of representation from various offices related to study abroad. Obviously, global seminars will be there, and Professor Lott will actually be joining us from 12:30 to 1:30, so you can come by, meet her in person, and ask any questions you have about the courses. Or you can come anytime to ask us questions about the logistics of the application and such as well. Next up, Eduardo Magayan will also be at that expo. He is a study abroad financial aid counselor. So he focuses, he works officially with the financial aid office, but he's dedicated to study abroad participants. He's going to be offering a GS financial aid session later this month. But if you can't wait until October 29th, you can also see the recording from last fall, which is going to be it's going to have 99.9% of the same information. He will also be offering some additional, more general study abroad financial aid sessions that will probably include a little bit about global seminars, but won't be as dedicated and focused on it. Once you have narrowed down your programs, you can request a one-on-one with him. Preferably, you'd also wait until we have the program costs confirmed. But instead of reaching out to him on VAC, which we might also be able to help you with, but prefers that you reach out via the Financial Aid and Scholarships Office. So I have a couple of snips from their website. So basically just go to the Contact Us tab up top and then scroll down and click on under Submit a Question. It's this Services and Support portal. Once you log on, there will be a drop down where you can select Study Abroad. And that way the question about study abroad and financial aid will go directly to him for a response. And don't worry if he's out, he does have a couple of people helping him with backup. The reason we ask you to narrow down the programs is because there are many of you and your fellow study abroad hopefuls, and only one of him. So he does have limited time. So that's why we ask for you to hold off for just a little bit until you're sure which program you want. Now, how you can reach me or any of the study abroad or global seminar advisors is through primarily the Virtual Advising Center. Hopefully you're familiar with this, vac.ucsd.edu. You can ask questions there, and you can also request an appointment if you're not available to come to our virtual drop-ins, which is primarily how we advise students. This is all via VAC and Zoom. They are every week, Monday and Thursday from 1 to 3 p.m. and Fridays from 10 to 11:30 a.m. And Eduardo actually usually comes to those Friday drop-ins if he is able, which is most of the time, but not all of the time. And if we do have any in-person events, particularly around pre-departure, or again, the general session that we'll host later this month, will be in the dance hall. So you can orient yourself using the map. You can see here over to the right is the amphitheater, and where it says how to reach us is sort of where the Price Center is. So hopefully that tells you where we are here at UC 409. All right. And thank you. That's all I have. Any questions about what I've discussed? Okay, I will turn it over to Professor Lott, who first has something to share with you, an announcement in ASL.
Okay. I think I started with saying that my sign name is Lipstick, that I actually got that name sign from a French deaf friend many years ago. And this is basic information about the program. You're going to take two courses. One is upper division and one is lower division. They're both linguistics courses, so you get 8 units of linguistics. And as part of those courses, we're visiting a lot of different deaf cultural sites and historical sites in Paris and near Paris. Lisa,
That should be good.
that was it? Okay.
Yeah.
In LSF or French Sign Language, and the other one, the upper division class, is taught in English. So you don't need to know any sign language before you join, but you do need to be interested in learning sign language. So, because we're going to spend a lot of time signing when we're there, we're going to meet deaf people, as I'll show you. In addition to the two courses, we're actually part of the courses. We're going to be visiting a lot of deaf historical sites and cultural sites in Paris and near Paris. But first, let me tell you just a little bit about myself. I actually got my degree at UCSD also. I majored in psychology many years ago. I went to University of Texas in Austin to get my master's and PhD in anthropology. And I wanted to study deaf storytelling within a family that had deaf and hearing people. So that was what I did my ethnographic study of, Poetics of ASL Storytelling. And then I came back to San Diego, and I've been the academic coordinator for ASL, and I'm a lecturer in linguistics I teach both ASL and linguistics courses like ASL poetry and sociolinguistics of deaf communities, and now the seminar in Paris. I also have illustrated some sign language books and sign language dictionaries. I used to love drawing, haven't done it in a while. This was my favorite book, which was Illustrated Children's Dictionary, which has 1,000 signs, and we also made a video. So If you ever know children who want to have access to ASL, this is a great book to give them. And the video is online for free. So let me know if you want to know more about that. I can share that link. It's a fun book, and it's also a great opportunity for families and children to learn more about ASL. I first became interested in ASL when I was a child and I had a deaf babysitter. Just completely random. My mom chose this woman to babysit me. I didn't even know why. And then as I got a little bit older, I met this woman named Bonnie Goff, who was the first ASL teacher in San Diego. And I was super fortunate to get to know her. She had a big, big influence on my life and really my whole career. I feel like is thanks to Bonnie. And then I lived in the Paris Deaf School for 5 months, way back in the 1990s. So quite a long time ago. It's still basically the same. Things don't change very quickly. And that is when I got to know deaf people in France. And that's when the idea for this seminar was born. I saw that, oh, their signing is a little different than ASL, and it's very different in interesting ways. So I wanted to learn more about LSF and kind of compare ASL and LSF. So some of these are friends that I've known for many, many years and who will be guest speakers in the seminar. I hope the noise from the street isn't too loud. There's a big truck going by right now.
You're
So
fine.
Okay, so once again, we have these two courses. So Ling 9 is Sign Languages and Deaf Culture in the US and France. That's the one where we're going to be learning LSF. And we're going to start from very basics. As if you were taking an ASL 1 class here on campus, it'll be like an LSF 1 class. We'll have some deaf guest speakers. We'll have some deaf tour guides on our visits to the cultural sites. And so we'll be doing a lot of signing. So that's one thing I do need to emphasize is to anyone can join the seminar, and I welcome anyone who has an interest in sign language, but you do have to be interested in sign language. This isn't just a fun field trip to France, although being in Paris is amazing and I'm sure you'll really enjoy it. But you're going to be working hard too while we're there, learning the language and also learning about the historical roots of ASL. So we're going to be reading research articles and having discussions and quizzes based on a couple different languages that have influenced ASL. It's a great seminar for anyone who's majoring or minoring in linguistics. It's approved for the DEI requirement and might also satisfy other requirements of your college or your major. Possibly you can look into that. So learning to communicate again in LSF and about cultural differences between American deaf people and French deaf people. And then for 149, we're looking at old LSF from the 19th century. We're looking at North American Indigenous Sign Languages, like Plains Indian Sign Language. We're going to compare with Black ASL and see how that affected the growth and evolution of ASL. A little bit about Mexican Sign Language, and then the sign language of Hawaii, which is an example of a sign language that's very endangered, and there's only a few people who still know it. So we'll look at all the different influences on sign languages as they're born and as they grow, and other sign languages might come over and take over, and then some of the indigenous sign languages are then lost. So this guy, the Abbé de l'Épée, Abbé means priest and épée means sword. So his sign name is the priest of the sword. He was the first person who decided he wanted to educate deaf people in France. And he started a school in about 1760. The school that we're going to visit was the next location of the school, but Abbé de la Paix is really well known in French culture. There's some statues that we'll visit. But what happened a little bit later was that a person named Thomas Gallaudet came from the US over. First, he went to England. They weren't very welcoming to him, so he went to France. He met some French people when he was in England, and they said, "Come on over to Paris. We'll show you how we teach deaf kids in Paris." So he spent some time in Paris and eventually convinced this deaf person named Laurent Clair to go with him back to Connecticut and set up the first deaf school in America. So Claire and Gallaudet basically brought French Sign Language to the US, and that was the first language of the school, which has evolved separately from LSF for the 200 years now, so it's quite different. But at the time, Claire was using LSF and he was adapting LSF to be more sort of in line with English. So that's why we're looking at historical roots there. There's an organization called CEA Kappa, which sponsors our, or really partners with UCSD to sponsor this seminar. So they have a location in Paris. That's where we have class. They organize our excursions, our guest speakers. And so when you're there in Paris, you'll be going to the CEA Kappa every time we have a class day. And on the very first day, they do take us on a really nice boat tour at the end of the day. They give us a huge orientation about how to feel comfortable in France, how to make sure that pickpockets don't get you, where to eat, how to get money, all the things you need to know about your housing. And then we take a boat tour and we get to see the Eiffel Tower. We just see it from the boat. I think you'll probably want to go back to it another time and maybe go up. This is what where our classroom is. I don't know if you could see the little book. That's where the classroom is. And the star is where the world's first school for the deaf is. And that's one of our first excursions. We'll be visiting the school. We'll have a tour of the school, probably in English, since we won't know a lot of LSF at that point. And I just put some pictures from past seminars. So this seminar has happened 5 times before. We started in 2019. We kind of were forced to take 2 years off during COVID, and we came back in 22 and have been doing it every summer. So it changes a little bit each summer, but it's basically the same content. And this was just this last summer when one of my friends happened to be high up in the building and took this cool picture of us in the courtyard. And after we visit the deaf school, we'll walk over to this beautiful garden, and usually we do some discussion there. We sometimes have a guest speaker there in the garden, especially depending on the weather. If we want to be outdoors, then if it's a beautiful day, we can meet there. And I'm just showing some different groups. This was the group this summer with 23 people in the class. You probably are already aware that the class can be up to 28 people. We just need 15 to make it a go. But this last summer was the largest group we've had yet. And in that garden, there's also a really beautiful art museum. There's this pond where children push sailboats around, and it's a beautiful place to visit. And another one of our sites is the International Visual Theater. You see they're wearing masks. That was in 22 when we had to wear masks most of the time when we were indoors. So IVT does deaf theatrical performances around Europe. They publish sign language books and they offer LSF courses for hearing people. So we'll actually take an LSF lesson there from one of their leaders. And then we always take a picture in the front courtyard of the theater. You can see how it changes each year, not so much. That bright yellow is always bright yellow. And then we're going to visit 2 castles. This one is called Vincennes, Chateau Vincennes. And it's the oldest castle in Europe. We're going to have a deaf tour guide. This woman in the gold dress, Sandrine, is a deaf woman. She has a deaf family. And so she is approved by the government of France to give tours of historical sites. So she actually takes us into some parts of the castle that other people don't get to see, which is really cool. And so she's doing her tour guide. She's doing the tour there in LSF. Real basic, because this one usually is like week 2. So we ask her to slow down, we ask her to repeat, we just make sure we understand. And then later in the seminar, she was also our tour guide at Palace of Versailles this last summer. I'm sure you've heard of Versailles. This was where it was really special because when you go into the palace, it's super loud, super crowded. It's one of the most visited sites probably in all of France. But Sandrine has special permission to take us behind the scenes, and we got to go to some of the rooms that most visitors don't get to see. And suddenly it's quiet and just beautiful. It felt like kind of magical because we were in the special part that no one gets to see. So we'll have LSF guided tour. And then we're going to have lunch at a couple of deaf restaurants. So this one's called Café Scene. They do a lot to try and educate the public about sign language. They have the menus. They teach sign language kind of through the menu, and they have a video up on the wall showing signs for food-related things, ketchup and mustard, wine, whatever. So we get to interact there with the deaf waiters. And then this is a new one we did last summer, which was really fun. It's Café Furaha is vegan fast food. This is owned and operated by a deaf man. He actually signed really fast, and I had to keep telling him to slow down. So sometimes the experiences with the guides or owners is interesting because you're really seeing the real thing. You're seeing someone who is signing at his natural speed, and while some people are able to slow down and sign more simplified for our class, some people are not. So sometimes you're just kind of getting the overall and seeing a lot of signs go by you, and you may not understand everything, but you don't worry about it because you're getting a little bit, and that's what's important. We're going to visit the Louvre Museum. I don't know if you heard this yesterday, they had a big jewelry heist at the Louvre. It was a couple people broke in and stole some crown jewels from like Napoleon and I don't know, really priceless jewels. They broke into a window while the museum was open, stole some stuff. No one was hurt. Luckily, they evacuated the museum. And anyway, so check the news. They're looking for those people now. They escaped on scooters after they stole the stuff. So kind of amazing, but I just saw that in the news yesterday. We're also going to visit a museum called the Musée de la Chasse et de la Nature. That's Museum of Hunting and Nature. And you can see we're signing the LSF sign for bear, which is like the ears on the bear. And this is a really cool museum that does fanciful things with animals. They have a lot of taxidermy, and that is a sanglier, which is a wild boar wearing a ballet tutu. So they have beautiful art mixing old stuff with new stuff. And yeah, that's the sign for sanglier. That picture, that first drawing is from an LSF dictionary from 1856. And then you see that the sign below that in the new dictionary is really the same. So some of the signs haven't changed much in many, many years. As I mentioned, we'll have some deaf tour or some deaf guest speakers. These people are not confirmed, so I'm showing you the ones we had last year. Bruno Moncel is a deaf French LSF professor. We had Simone Atia, who's a super famous deaf performer all around Europe. Then we had Dr. Sabine Arnaud, who's a scholar of French deaf history, and Catherine, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. That's one thing when you're interacting with deaf people, you never hear them say their last name. So I just call her Catherine Z. I know her sign name is like this because she's smiling all the time. And so her sign name is based on her smile. So those are four, probably those are the four we'll meet, but we'll see how that works out. And then this coming summer is very special because this festival is only offered every 2 years and happens to be 26, which is great. So for this, we have 3 days in another city called Reims, Reims. Um, it's about an hour from Paris by train. So we'll go up there, we'll stay in a hotel for 2 nights. And this is a huge festival. They say they have like 10,000 people attending, but you'll see at least 5,000 people, deaf people from all over the world. They have performances from deaf theater troupes from many countries. They have artists, they have booths so you can buy stuff, all kinds of street performance. It's just a huge, fun festival that is really a highlight of the seminar, but only every other year. So you're lucky. If you go on 26, you get to go to the festival. This is, if you take ASL classes, you can mention this to your teachers. They all know about this. They all want to go to this. This is just really popular in the deaf community worldwide. And if you've taken ASL 1C, you might have read this book by Niall DeMarco, or maybe you've heard of Niall DeMarco. Niall is, the book is his memoir, which is really interesting to read. I happened to run into him in Paris just at a cafe, which was like, whoa, what's going on? And then the next year we met him at that festival at the meet and greet. Um, so if you don't know him, he's just really attractive deaf man who somebody told he was planning to be a math teacher. And then someone told him, I think you should think about modeling. You'd be a good model. And he was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. And so he actually went on the show America's Next Top Model and he won. And then within months after that, he went on another show called Dancing with the Stars. I'm sure you've heard of that. And he won that too. And as a deaf person who doesn't hear at all, to be able to win a dance competition is pretty phenomenal. He's just an incredible person. Lucky for us, he likes to spend a lot of time in Paris. So he's usually there every summer. So we're always kind of like, where's Niall? Let's find him. And we look at his Instagram and then we go like to this little coffee shop. I like to take pictures of myself standing in the place where Niall stood, just as like we're kind of following in his footsteps. And usually we kind of bump into him, but last year we didn't get to see him. So not every year. And then beyond the seminar, there's just so much to do in Paris. There's no matter what you're interested in, you'll find something fascinating to do. Students do travel outside of Paris and outside of France during the 5 weeks we're there. You do have time on the weekends to do that. But there's also so much to do in Paris that you don't have to feel like you need to travel around. I like to go to cemeteries. It sounds strange, but they're just really beautiful. They have some beautiful artwork. I like to wander around. People even will take a picnic and have lunch in one of the cemeteries. You can visit the graves of, I don't know, Simone de Beauvoir or Baudelaire or like famous deaf people. I mean, famous, not deaf people, famous French people. Um, and then, have you heard of the Obey Giant, Shepherd Fairy? I don't know. Sometimes people say they haven't heard of. He does murals all around the world, and I like to visit his murals. That was one of them. And then this one, that blue mural you see in the background, that's one of Shepherd Fairy's murals. And it happens to be right behind a really famous fountain with art by Niki de Saint-Phalle. So if you know UCSD, you know the sun god, which is that she made that, Niki de Saint-Phalle, and she made the pieces in this fountain that are moving, and it's cool. It's a nice place also to just like hang out, have lunch. It's also very near to where we have class. And then getting around is super easy. You can take the metro. I forget how many metro stops are there, like 300 or something, but it seems like within a few blocks of wherever you are, you can hop on a metro and you can transfer to another one. You can get anywhere you want to go, which is really convenient. They also have buses, they have a tram, or I like to walk a lot. So if it's just like 20, 30-minute walk, I'll do that if I can. Of course, the food in Paris is one of the best things. You're gonna get your croissants. You're gonna, if you're daring, you're gonna try eating the escargot. And I'll give you suggestions of where you can get some good food that isn't so expensive. Cafe de Flore, that is actually a kind of expensive place, but people like to go there just once, just for the experience or for your Instagram picture. So remember that the applications open November 1st. The first 28 completed applications will be the people that get to go. So you don't want to wait too long just because there could be a lot of interest. We had a lot of people sign up for the info session, so it's hard to know how many people will actually start the application process. And then there's an early bird deadline February 1st and the final deadline March 1st. Lisa can answer more questions about that if you have questions. About the website, please watch my video. I am signing in LSF on the video, so you get a little idea of what it looks like. And then if you have questions, you can ask them now, or you're definitely welcome to email me anytime. I'm having Zoom office hours on Fridays this quarter at 11 and 1. And then if you want to know more about me, you can look at my website too. So that is all I have to share. I'm going to stop the sharing, but does anyone have any questions?
There is one in chat. What would you recommend? What year would you recommend students to do ASL in Paris? Because we learn LSFS instead. I was wondering if it's better to learn the basics for ASL at UCSD before going, so I don't get confused between the two.
Yeah. Okay, well, we always have students who have studied some ASL and students who have not. So both types of students are very welcome. You don't need to study ASL before you go. You'll have it, your experience will be similar, but also a little bit different. I think that if you have an option, you might want to go at the end of like sophomore or junior year. You can also go at the end of senior year. Um, yeah.
I'd recommend you plan to go on a year that they have the Clindoye Festival.
Yeah, that's true. If you can go this coming summer, it'll be really exciting for sure.
Also, you never know what's going to happen. We had to, for example, we had to cancel a couple of years there. Now, that was a very unique circumstance, obviously, but maybe there's a year where Professor Lott isn't able to offer it that summer for some reason. So I always recommend striking while the iron is hot.
Yeah,
which is this year.
I think so too. Yeah, you shouldn't feel intimidated. If you don't know any ASL, that's totally okay. Because like I said, we'll be starting from scratch with LSF, so you'll be fine. If you do know ASL, you'll have to work at putting your ASL on the shelf while we're there because we're only going to be signing in LSF while we're there. Sometimes students have trouble like not signing ASL, but obviously we want to immerse ourselves in LSF as much as possible.
Can you comment on the weather? What's the weather like?
The weather varies a lot. There's usually, during that 5 weeks, there's usually a heat wave. They call it the canicule. And that might go for 3 or 4 or even 5 days, and it could be extremely hot and humid. So I've been there when it was like 107 and I don't know, 80% humidity. You just don't even want to go anywhere. You're just kind of like, where's the air conditioning for a few days? Um, but in recent years, last year and the year before, there's also been some rain. So you kind of have to be prepared for a light rain once in a while. I really like when it rains because then it cools everything off. In general, I'd say the summers are hotter than San Diego summers. Definitely a little more rain than San Diego summers. I usually bring an umbrella just to be ready. But it's not like you're cold in the rain. It's like a warm rain, so you don't really need like a big jacket or anything like that. So hard to predict the weather, but you have to be ready for some heat and you have to be ready for some light rain.
Would this cover a language GE for any of the colleges, and in particular Muir?
Probably not because you would need more than one level for that, right? So if your college requires language, they usually require 3 or 4 quarters, and you're only going to be getting 1 quarter's worth of LSF. So you wouldn't be able to continue up to the more advanced levels. So probably wouldn't work for that requirement. Unless
We
you just need 1 quarter, then probably would.
and are ASL classes offered only during different quarters? I heard that ASL 1A is only offered in fall or spring.
Yes, ASL 1A is offered every fall and spring. We have both remote and in person for that level. ASL level B, the second level, is offered in fall and winter. And then it goes on. C is offered in winter and spring. D is offered in fall and spring. So it depends, yeah, which quarter does you can start ASL in fall or spring.
Does this program count as a quarter of ASL? I would imagine not.
No, no.
It's LSF.
Yeah, it's LSF.
um, would you recommend learning basic French too, or should we just focus on LSF?
A lot of people like to learn some basic French before they go, just so that you have a deeper experience while you're there. As you're walking around or in the public, you can kind of understand people more. We are going to be learning a little bit about French because, well, like for example, when you want to say in French, "How are you doing?" or "How's it going?" you say "Ça va?" And there's a sign that goes with that. So you can sign "Ça va?" And then people usually say, this is how you say yes or oui, oui, ça va. So as we're learning the LSF, we are going to learn some French words that kind of correspond to those signs, but we aren't going to be studying French or really practicing French. But you'll get a lot of exposure to French while you're there for sure. I mean, you're going to be ordering food, going into a store and asking for some cheese or bread, so you're going to learn a little bit. You're going to learn that when you do go into a French boutique or store, you always make eye contact with the person who works there. You say bonjour. I mean, you can sign bonjour, but you speak bonjour. Um, you kind of never see anyone without saying bonjour. It's like considered rude if you don't look at the person and say bonjour. So, but CEA Kappa will give us a lot of cultural tips like that, just so their emphasis is often like how to fit in, how to not be too noticed, because if you're really noticeable as an American, then you become a target for a pickpocket. And they have all kinds of schemes that they try to trick you and, grab your phone when you put your phone on the cafe table as you're having your coffee. Someone's going to grab it. So you just have to be super aware. It's like being in any really big city. You'll be aware of, keeping all your possessions close. And CEA Kappa does a great job of teaching us about all of that.
Someone asked if this seminar fulfills anything from UCSD, and I can confirm it fulfills both Linguistics 9 and 149 can apply to a major or minor in linguistics.
Yeah.
And then there's a question, what is the housing like? And so that is not officially confirmed just yet. It's because things can change between now and the program start date. But what it'll be is you'll either be housed in dormitories, like student apartment style, or in local apartments. There'll be multiple of you in the same building, but not necessarily all of you in the same building. And you could be you could be sharing in doubles, or you could be in singles. It all just depends a little bit. And yes, the question just came in about Linguistics 9 and 149. Yes, you have to take both courses in the global seminar. You cannot opt out of one. It's a package deal.
Yeah, nobody asked about this, but we usually have class on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Kind of all day. I don't know, like 10 to 4, with a lunch break. And then usually on Thursdays, we go on our excursions. Sometimes the excursions have to be booked on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's a little various, but so you need to think of those 4 days are kind of our main class days. And then some weekends you'll have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off to do what you want, to study and do what you want. The one weekend that's booked will be the first weekend because we will go to the festival that weekend. I always wish the festival was later in the month just because you could learn more LSF, you would feel more comfortable maybe at the festival. But even if you don't know any sign language, you'll still get a lot out of it. You'll be immersed in the deaf world, the international deaf world. So yeah, so most weekends, usually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are free days. Sometimes there's optional things, like if there's a LSF meetup, I'll tell you about that on the weekend. So if you want more practice, and you'll be with your cohort, other people in the class, so you'll probably want to be practicing your signing. You'll have things to read, and you'll have some quizzes during class. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like Lisa said, the housing does include a kitchenette. You'll probably do your own grocery shopping and because you don't want to eat in restaurants every day, all day. Yeah. Probably take the metro from your housing to campus. What else?
You just another reminder. So just like the courses are a package deal, so is the housing. So unfortunately, if you have family or friends in Paris, you cannot stay with them. You're expected to stay in the group housing. That is for sort of safety purposes for the entire group.
I'm just looking through the questions. You got all the questions that were
I passed them all on to you.
nice.
Anything else?
Well, thank you so much for coming today. It's good to see so many people have interest. And yeah, let me know if you have other questions or something that comes up later. Just email me, stop by my office hours, or I'm going to ASL Club if you're in the ASL group. I'll see you there.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.